Hi, I'm Phoebe, or Miss Holland, my students. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for clicking on this video. If you stick around, you'll listen to an album review of Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters. So let's get started. This whole album can kind of feel or sound cacophonous and complex and confusing. And speaking of alliteration, Fiona Apple uses a lot of that. So, things she uses in her voice and her lyrics, I think there's somewhat of a hierarchy. Rhythm is first for her. She has this stream of consciousness way of singing where she's connecting the ends of words to the beginning of new ones, and she's not as much concerned with like this typical structure of a song or of a phrase as she is with linking the rhythms of all the instruments together. The next thing would be repetition. So, for example, like in the last tune, On I Go, in the long run, the phrase in the long run, she has two voices singing that, and it's kind of sounds like two different people talking. And sometimes they're saying the same thing, sometimes they're not, but then on In the Long Run, she uses the two voices singing together to say that phrase. And so she uses repetition for emphasis, and she uses it in different voices to have different characters be on the same page about this one thing. So she uses repetition for emphasis, for contrast. Sometimes she will throw out a phrase that she only uses once in the whole song and it really catches your attention, but then she never says it again. But more often, she's saying these stream of consciousness phrases or very simple phrases like in the long run to kind of like guide you along in the song. Not sure, we can ask her what her intent is, but we can't really assume anything about what the intention is with that. I would say the third thing that she finds, or that she uses, is alliteration. And it's basically in every track on the album. So the next thing she uses the most is alliteration. I wouldn't say it's as important to her as rhythm or repetition, or that's what I'm hearing, but it's certainly something that can tie a whole phrase together and that makes these really complex tunes something that you want to listen to and something that you can, like, that your ear can grab onto. The next would be contrast. So the types of sounds that she makes with her voice are phenomenal and really exciting. So about halfway through most of the tunes, I noticed that her voice gets really raw and gravelly, and that could be something that happens naturally to her while she's recording. If you think, obviously you don't record these songs in one shot, and it takes a lot of time, and she's been singing for a long time, and her debut album was in 1997, and this is 2020, so she's been singing for quite a long time, and your voice changes over time, so her voice sounds much more mature than it did 23 years ago. Whether or not it's something that happens naturally over the course of the song, she uses it to her advantage. And it's really cool to hear this other character come in, and it almost sounds like somebody else has come in singing, or that at least it's a new character of the song. So for her, for example, that I would consider a bit of an outlier because it's much more intense lyrically. It's very intense, and she uses these lyrics and the gravel and rawness of her voice to contrast the oohs and ahs in the chorus, a chorus of people that has an echo. And so you have these really soft sounding, choir voices, but they also sound eerie because they start and stop at different times. The consonants, instead of all ending on the same word and then on the same sound, it goes like that. So that can sound messy, or it can sound eerie, or it can even be sort of juvenile, and like a younger choir would sing. And I think all of those work for that song. I would say she is least concerned with rhyming in a traditional scheme. So she has a lot of internal rhymes. In one tune she says, in Cosmonauts, she rhymes exists with something else that comes right before it. And there's like not a lot of noticeably ending phrases with rhymes. And so to really understand the rhyme scheme, you would probably have to look at the lyrics and organize them. You could organize them in a way that makes sense, but honestly, like separating the lyrics from the music just to make more sense of it doesn't really work for me. I like thinking that the rhyming is the least important part. It's not that you're meant to predict what she's saying, but it's that what she's saying is supposed to be orally satisfying. Fiona Apple makes aspects of the song that are seemingly random feel right at home. So, in a number of tunes, she uses cello and guitar, or bass, electric or acoustic, to have these moments towards ends or intros where they contrast the rhythm of the drum and the voice. They're not even maybe playing in key, and they're really not sort of agreeing with anything else, except that those four instruments she uses quite similarly across the album. And especially if you have like an electric walking bass, so walking being like a very active sort of stepwise bass line, so boom, 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 stepwise, active. There's lots of notes going on. She uses that, but then she also uses a plucked bass, or a bass played, like an upright bass played with a bow, which is somewhat unusual outside of classical music. And she uses that to make like an unexpected sort of weird character jump in at a different time. And it adds to the chaos, but because she uses those instruments similarly, we're like, oh, that's like before. Especially if you're listening to the album all the way through, which I totally would recommend. The last thing I'd like to talk about is how Fiona Apple uses noise on this record. So, a couple of the songs, like On I Go, For Her, Newspaper, and others, the drum beat emerges from noise. So there's maybe a vibroslap, or that's the thing that goes like brrr, or dogs barking, or kind of ambient noise, background noise. Upon listening to it the second, third, fourth time, you can hear that she sets up everything you need to know in like the first 10 seconds or the first 15 seconds. And even though there's so much variety, so much contrast, so much rhythmic interest and melodic interest and harmonic interest, she still gives you a lot. Heavy Balloon, or For Her, Ladies, it starts out with some of the pieces of the drum, so maybe like a kick and snare, or there's clapping, or it's most of the drum set or pieces of the drums that she uses, and it's playing most of the rhythm, or it's playing the rhythm entirely, and then she layers voices on top of that. So whether it's like electric guitar, acoustic piano, a synth piano, she adds things on top of that and adds different rhythms or rhythms that sound the same, but it often will come back to that original rhythm or you can find the original rhythm somewhere in there. On the note of adding layers and adding voices and characters into a song, a couple of the transitions in these songs, rather, are marked by taking away those voices. So what we often hear from like pre-chorus right into a chorus is that the drums will crash, or like it'll get faster and louder, and she totally pulls the rug out from under us by taking away voices, or taking away everything except drums and voice. But it's the chorus, and it's like the middle of the song, and you're like, can I please have the rest of the song back? And so I think she like subverts our expectations and the general expectation of songwriting in general. Just thinking about how cool she is. Overall, she has this kind of hierarchy. I think I hear a hierarchy of how lyrics are important, and I also hear the different characters in a song. I also hear things that are seemingly random become aspects that fit right in. And I see continuity throughout the album, which is wonderful because there's so much contrast and our ears need something to hold on to. So, what do we have? An album that has many characters, points that are seemingly random but actually fit right into the song. We have lyrics that emphasize rhythm, repetition, stream of consciousness, rhyme, and overall, a great record. My goal with this is to kind of break down an album, understand what makes it what it is, and hopefully make it more accessible to people who wouldn't have otherwise listened to this new music. Take in contemporary music, like this is our time, and, you know, be an active participant in the world of music that exists right now. You know, hopefully if you're a musician, you're making music. If you're a listening musician, you're listening to as much as you possibly can. And if you're not either of those, maybe now's the time to become one. Thank you so much for watching. Please like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you want to see more. Goodbye.